Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well today. What you're looking at right now is the Steam forum discussions, and this morning there was a post. The new BMW is OPAF. This gentleman's written. We're going to discuss this a little bit. It's definitely a controversy when it comes to, or a talking point. Maybe not a controversy. Controversy might be the wrong word. Talking point. The new addition to the game, the GT3 BMW, is the most unbalanced car I have ever seen. The car needs massive BOP changes to prevent online lobbies becoming more of a single make BMW Cup that it already is. Now, let's see here. Let me think. The race I was in last night, including myself, had 8 drivers, of which 7 drivers were BMWs. The race that I raced, endurance race that I raced over the weekend, out of 21 cars, I want to say I had about 10 BMWs. And other league race that I'm in is absolutely loaded with BMWs. When there's 35 cars, there's like 15 BMWs. That's very unbalanced and not healthy for Assetto Corsa competition at all, in my opinion. It also breaks the immersion of the game because it's really cool to see all the different cars on the track. This gentleman says, is it really broken? I got back in the game this week or so and still found the McLarens to be quite fast on the straights but fightable with the Merc. I'll try this BMW, this guy says. Drunken T says, it's not OP, it's very balanced. It's the other cars that aren't truly balanced and need to be buffed. The M4 does exactly what it can do best. It's fast around corners, but therefore on the streets it's lacking top speed, and even in the slipstream of other cars, it can't keep up with them. That, I tell you right now, that I don't believe it's true for a minute. When I drive the BMW, personally, I could turn faster laps at almost every single track, and we're talking to like an average to under average driver. I mean, my safety skill level is through the roof because I feel like I have almost pinpoint skill as far as like where to control my car. But as far as fast goes, I would say, I'm under average. But I could get in the BMW and all of a sudden I'm within like a couple seconds in race trim of other cars. Not so much with the McLaren. The McLaren, who I've tried a lot this past week, it's a little more handful. But if the McLaren feels like you're driving a race car, the BMW feels like you're driving a Cadillac driving down the interstate on a Sunday afternoon drive. There's like no stress to the car. There's like no real giant feeling to the car. It's an empty car. It feels like a soccer mom car that will go fast around a racetrack. It doesn't feel racy at all, the car. It feels like the song Comfortably Numb. So Thief 035 says, he quotes Drunken T and says, Eris, probably going to say his name wrong, Eris Vasilikos of Kunos, who does the YouTube channel Eris Drives, Kunuk's lead physics dev confirmed that something is wrong with the M4 and they are working for a fix and an update. More details here or in Air's Discord channel. Really? No kidding. I'm just shocked that Eris would think that Moneybags BMW might need an update. That is just shocking news. Could it be that BMW made a deal with ACC as other manufacturers have done in other games to say, okay, we'll let you update and design our new car, but we want our car the fastest in your game for like XYZ amount of months. Which does happen in these games. Somebody's shaking their head going, no, that doesn't happen. Bull doo-doo. That does not happen. Go Blue Team says, I don't know, for me, I'm pretty close in the McLaren BMW. Have only drove the McLaren a few times, and I agree that the McLaren and the BMW are both much better than basically all other cars. But I feel the other cars should feel closer to the McLaren and BMW, not that the McLaren and BMW should be worse. Honest, I agree with this, what he's saying. I think a couple things need to happen. They need to buff the setups. First of all, I don't believe when they came out with 1.8 that all the setups in every car had been gone through. I think they might have rushed it because it was like holiday time, let's get something out big to make a big splash. In some ways, I think it was improvement, but I don't think for the game it's improvement to have certain cars that aren't historically correct be like the kings of the game. It's not healthy for the game. So he goes on to say, I would have to play something else if it wasn't for those two cars being decent to drive. Everything on 1.2%. So this guy is driving those two cars because of speed, not because he likes the cars. He'd go play another game if he was slower in driving the other cars. That also, his point he's making also shows how broken the game is currently. I enjoy it. I'm saying it's broken. I enjoy the game still. But as far as the manufacturer's cars, it's extremely broken. The slower 1.5 to 2 seconds slower, and lucky even to make a clean lap, honestly. The BMW is pretty slow on the straights, too, or maybe I just use too much wing, but it seems some cars just fly by on straights, but it's definitely good in the corners and over curbs. It might be a tad slower. I'm not sure. I'd have to do some testing. But what I do know is the Porsche Cup car, which is a harder car to drive, is super fast in the corners. And, I mean, in the straights. Must have been a buff. I don't know. But I could drive the Porsche Cup almost to the same speeds, if not even a little faster than, say, the McLaren by the end of the straight, and like say Paul Ricard. Zedelblot says, I was a Bentley boy for all of last year. Then I tried the M4 and I was quicker, but the car wasn't particularly fun to drive for me. Yeah, because it drives like a soccer mom's car. There's no real feeling in the car. It doesn't feel like a race car. It feels like a family sedan. And I'll tell you something else. I've driven in the past. I've driven on a BMW on a real track as a passenger, and it felt smooth, so smooth. So maybe it's a characteristic of that car. Who knows? But when you drive the car, this present day car, there's not a lot of feeling. He goes on to say, I'm now in the McLaren 720 and enjoying a lot. My lap times are similar to what I could do in the M4, maybe a bit slower sometimes, but never more than 0.05s. I will say, though, that the M4 allows you to get away with stuff the 720s punishes you for. And I will elaborate on his comment and say that is the same. Go try driving. You're driving a BMW and say, "Oh, it doesn't need anything." I call bukkake and go try driving the Audi. Go drive the Audi and come back and tell me that the BMW is not overpowered. The Audi was a leading manufacturer throughout SOR racing across the worldwide globe, and it's an incredibly difficult car to drive, and probably one of the hardest cars to drive, and it's underpowered. So what does that tell you? Is BMW filling the pockets of ACC? I wonder. Maybe Audi's not getting enough attention. I call bull on that too. Okay, Proton V5. The BMW is absolutely OP. Anyone that denies that is not paying attention. No, Proton. Anybody that's denying that the BMW is absolutely OP is soaking wet in love with the BMW so much and their newfound faster lap times that they're in denial. It's about 50% easier to drive than any other car out there, he goes on to say. It needs to be nerfed, or it will be, as you say, a BMW single-made simulator. This was made 2 days ago, this comment, and now they've so-called made a nerf on the BMW car this morning that I'm also reading on various discords that it really hasn't made any difference. It's a very weak nerf. Meanwhile, they nerfed the crap out of Honda. For what? Honda wasn't doing. Well, who's Honda bothering? Why the big nerf on Honda? It makes me question if ACC actually knows what it's doing or not. Really, which is sad. I love the tire wear patch. I love the changes. I love the extra damage. I feel like the damage should be even upped even more. If you want this to be a proper sim, you should not be able to face plant into a wall, drive off into a sand trap, or drive all over what would be muddy, muddy territory and not lose much time. Those things should be addressed and looked at if you want a proper simulator. iRacing doesn't have that either, and I think they should look into that. It's something that's very much ignored in the immersion of simulated racing is the outer track ground to being realistic. Another guy says, he quotes Proton VW, who was saying it's absolutely OP. Being easier does not mean it's faster. Okay, that's my reminder to eat my breakfast. So, being easier to drive doesn't mean it's faster. No, but being easier to drive results in faster lap times. Understood? Demikenko, whatever your name is. Because obviously you don't understand what the guy's saying. It's faster. What's confusing? Exactly. And then this guy says it's not faster. Well, Domingo, I'm sorry, but you are definitely confused, as the other guy said, and you should check. You should check your information because you're wrong. Go Blue Team says if you look at some of the top drivers, they also are 0.3 to 0.4 faster in the BMW. It's fast through the corners. Don't get twisted, though, that does not mean just anyone will be able to drive it that fast. Well, of course not. Everyone has different skill levels. I get beat all the time when I'm in it, the BMW, but I do feel like on a lot of tracks, I can do a new personal best with the BMW and get close to similar time in the McLaren, and the rest I'm very far off, 1 to 2 seconds. Bingo! We have a winner. Go blue team. How true. This is extremely true, and extremely true for your novice and average drivers. They're picking up 1 to 2 seconds per lap faster, or maybe even more, because the car, as this guy says up here, being easier to drive doesn't mean it's faster. You're confused, just like Proton says. You're a very confused man. Being easier to drive does mean faster. Are you clueless? Back to Go Blue Team, who actually is talking some sense. The rest of the cars are 1 to 2 seconds off my times, are still slow compared to fast guys, regardless of what they're driving. It's a reason why you see most BMWs and McLarens in the top 5. Those two cars really seem to be much easier to drive fast. It just makes setup tuning, I really don't know, but I don't even like driving the BMW myself. So I agree. I drive the BMW and I'm just like, ugh. And when I drive it for the reason that I'm more able to keep pace with the rest of the crowd. If I'm driving another 2 seconds slower than everyone else in an Audi or a Honda, what's the point? Like, I'm already at a handicap. And if the field is full of BMWs and McLarens, and I'm driving my Audi or my Honda, what's the point? Like, I'm already at a huge disadvantage. I might as well not even compete at all. He goes on to say, I have been trying out all the cars, and I used to only drive the Aston Martin. And it's much twitchier, not even close to the stability of the BMW after 1.8. I agree with him there, and that actually was a big turnoff to me when 1.8 came out, because I felt like, why did they make the Aston Martin twitchier? There was a change. I don't know if it was a change that was reported, but I don't care what they say. 100% was a change to the Aston Martin, either on patch 1.8 or shortly after. Let me read that sentence again. It's much twitchier, not even close to stability of BMW after 1.8, and really seems like most cars are really dangerous to drive without changing the setup a bit. I hope they redo the default setups to match the update. Bing, 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 bing. We have a winner. Exactly what I just said like 10 minutes ago. The setups were not updated when the patch came out, and that's what really makes the cars all feel weird, because you don't have a base setup that feels naturally smooth to drive with. And that's another reason why I feel they completely rushed that patch. For me, he goes on to say, for me, even using the default McLaren aggressive setup is pretty much impossible to drive, but making a few changes like lowering the rear hydraulic, softening the front dampers a touch, and making sure the camber is not maxed and toe is not crazy, it turns out really stable and it's easy to drive the BMW defaults. Yeah, because the BMW is the new shiny car and has all the setups, default setups, that they raced the crap out of them while getting it ready. So everything's updated and ready to go. Of course they're great, because they changed the patch and changed all the physics and didn't update the default setups for the other cars. It's not this is not brain surgery or very take quantitative problem solving to figure out. The car just seems easier to set up in general, like nothing going to make it hard to drive. He continues to say, "Bingo! Go Blue Team gets the award for common sense." Top drivers say they're faster than the BMW, and the developer says there's something wrong with the BMW. So sorry, sport, you're confused. Bingo again. And this guy just keeps arguing. He's very has a lack of intelligence when it comes to this subject. That's obvious. They're faster on some tracks, just like the Porsche is better on some tracks. That's another thing. I feel like the Porsche setups, the default Porsche setups, because it's a very popular car, were updated. Because when you drive the Porsche on the default setup, whether it be aggressive or safe, it feels very good and stable. It still does Porsche things, but it still feels very stable. So let's reread this. They are much faster in some parts, just like the Porsche and better in some tracks, or like the Merc is better on some tracks. The car is balanced as it should be. You're wrong on many accounts. You're just drunk with BMW love. ACZ just got a new update with changes to BMW McLaren. Oh, can you imagine that? Changes on the BMW McLaren. Yet, from other reports that I've read in different discords, those changes were not enough. It's interesting to find out some tweak on the aero will have effect on what many people count on. See you on track. So this guy's saying, tweak your aero. There'd be a big difference. Kunis seems to disagree with you. Another guy's chiming in against this Proton, or no, Demico, who's like a very confused guy. Kuno seems to agree with 1.8 tweaks the BMW GT3 Aero model, balancing tweaks for the following cars and track categories: BMW M4, GT3, all in quote track groups. Sorry, man, mate. So, like, generally, when people seem like they know what they're talking about, they don't know what they're talking about, and that's that guy. Anyone that's telling you that BMW is not overpowered is a person that's found new drunk love with the BMW because it's faster. They're going faster. Of course, they don't want it changed because now they're able to drive the car easier through corners, through straights, handle the car. Everything's better about the car compared to every car that they ever driven before in this game. Why would they ever want it changed? It's just silly. Wake up, people. The new aerochains are actually big for the car. It feels more heavy in the force feedback since the front end now also gets downforce from feeling. Together with it has gotten extra kg on a lot of tracks, though some 5 kg on, I guess, for the changes. It's still good in the corners and sticks really well, though it is missing straight line speed. Good. I'm glad. Hopefully, when I go to play ACC this week, every single race that I go into doesn't have 20 BMWs, because for me, that's not so good. We're going to take a quick look at something. While we're going through this, I want to back up my position on this. These are the the standings for GT World Challenge Championship for GT3 in North America. And here is your manufacturer's standings. Lamborghini, number 1. Mercedes, AMG, number 2. Acura, Porsche, then Ferrari. Capiche? See a BMW there? No. I know it's a new BMW, but we're not seeing a BMW there. You're seeing a McLaren there? No. No McLaren there. Okay. So, now we go to Fanatic World Challenge Asia. They don't have a, seems 2021. Seems they don't have a standings for manufacturing. Let's see. Program silver. And it keeps reverting to 2019 for some reason. 2020 goes back to 2019. They don't have a manufacturer standing, unfortunately. All right, we're going to not mess around with that, and we're going to go to Europe. Shrink this down so you can see it. 2021 champions, right? Fanatic World Europe Championship. Overall teams, Audi R8 LMS. Oh, can you imagine that? Audi being fast and a champion on top of that? And yet it's like 2 seconds, 3 seconds slower on almost every track. What's wrong with this picture, really? Pro Teams Amateur, Lamborghini. Don't see many people driving Lamborghinis, do you? Yet it was Pro Teams Pro-Am champ. Now, let's look at Fanatic GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup. Overall team, Audi R8 LMS GT3. Oh, imagine that. Audi is champion in both categories. That is, the game sure doesn't portray that. Pro-Am drivers, let's see, Lamborghini. Okay, AM drivers championship, Porsche 911 GTR3. Pro-Am teams champion, Ferrari 488 GT3. Pro-Am drivers, Ferrari. So in silver, it was Lamborghini, and silver drivers drove the Lamborghini, the champions. You see any BMWs there? Scratching my head right now. I don't see any BMWs. I also don't see any McLarens. Okay. We're going to make this a little smaller. You probably won't be able to see it, unfortunately. But as you see, there's a third category there. It's called Sprint Cup. and I'll just read it to you. Fanatic GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS Sprint Cup. Overall teams. Oh, can you imagine this? Audi RALMS. Number 1 overall teams. Overall drivers. Audi RALMS. Pro-Am teams. Lamborghini GT3 Evo. Pro-Am drivers. Lamborghini. Silver team drivers. Lamborghini. Well, it seems like Lamborghini is doing awfully well, and Audi, but this doesn't portray this in the game, does it? So, in my opinion, while I like ACC, I love the game. It's my most played game now. I played the most hours of any game in Steam in the 20 years that I've had Steam. But these statistics are showing that ACC really is a fantasy world. And it's very confusing how they're coming up with their statistics as far as what cars are fast and what cars are not. And very unbalanced. I wish I could get the one for Asia to show up. There's no manufacturers. I had to go all the way back. It just, when you click on 2020, it shows that there was nothing. So I'm not sure if they didn't run a series or what. I'd have to do some researching, but it's not that important. I think I proved my point by showing the American SRO World Championship for GT3 and also the European World Championships for 2021. More than made my point. And at the very bottom of this page, it shows all the cars, competitors: Aston Martin, Audi, Bentley, BMW, Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, Mercedes, and Porsche. It shows those clearly. So why is that Audi and Lamborghini are so hosed in this game? Yet there are champions, serious champions, in 2021 in Europe. And the World Challenge America manufacturer overall, it's Lamborghini, Mercedes, Acura, which is not even in the game, Porsche, Ferrari. Not one mention of any BMW or McLaren. Yet both are in the series. The competitors in this American series is Acura, Aston Martin, Audi, BMW, Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, Mercedes, and Porsche. I think that right there is evidence that this game is not an accurate portrayal of real life series. And on that note, I will conclude this broadcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. And if you severely disagree with me, I totally welcome your comments. If you agree with me, you could leave your comments too. Or if it's just not important to you, whatever. I totally accept constructive criticism. And because if you're giving me constructive criticism, it means you're wanting to have a dialogue with me rather than just ignore me. And I appreciate you coming to have a conversation with me on my channel. So with that said, please hit the subscribe button. Check out the various leagues that are on this YouTube page. There's some good ones. If you need any help joining them, hit me up. And that's the end of the broadcast. Sorry, it was very long-winded, but I'm kind of passionate about this topic, and I'd like to see it repaired. Have a good day.